Welcome to everybody who's joining this webinar hosted by Rails to Trails Conservancy. My name is Devon and I am the Trail Resources and Planning Manager here at Rails to Trails. And I'll be your moderator for today's webinar on the topic of accessible and inclusive events and programming on multi-use trails. Next slide. This webinar is brought to you by the Trail Nation Collaborative, a learning and information exchange platform provided by Rails to Trails Conservancy. In addition to webinars, we also provide the services that you can see on your screen, including an exclusive newsletter and peer-to-peer learning on the collaborative Facebook page. You can sign up to join the collaborative using the link that is shown on your screen, and this link will also be copied into the chat. The fact is that many of us and the people that we know and love are living with some kind of disability. According to numbers from the CDC, 1 in 4 adults is living with a disability, and for adults over 65, that number rises to 2 in 5. Here at Rails to Trails, our vision is that trails will connect everyone everywhere. Accessibility matters if we truly want to actualize this vision. And so here's how we are doing our part to uplift accessibility and inclusion within our Trails movement. Well, we provide the TrailLink app. It's a website and mobile app to help users find trails. With TrailLink, users can explore wheelchair trails and maps and use comprehensive trail guides with descriptions, photos, and reviews to plan their next outdoor adventure. We're working to expand the use of TrailLink by people with disability and within the disability rights community. We are also increasing the representation of people with disabilities across RTC's content platforms and storytelling. One example of this is through our Trail Moments series, where we've invited everyday trail lovers to tell us what trails mean to them and how they love to enjoy them. You can read Ian and Maggie's stories, as well as many, many more at the link that will be copied into your chat. And finally, we're providing resources to trail managers such as yourselves. We have an accessibility page in our trail building toolbox that was recently updated with new definitions, new resources, and links to relevant guidance, and added sections on accessibility considerations for planning and managing trails. In addition, RTC hosted a previous webinar that focused on the proposed accessibility guidelines for public rights-of-way for shared use paths, with perspectives and guidance from the U.S. Access Board and the Federal Highways Administration. At RTC, our focus is on multi-use trails, or what is known as shared use paths and accessibility guidance. These are trails that are primarily designed for use by bicyclists and pedestrians, including those with disabilities, for transportation and recreation purposes. So if you are curious about information on accessible pedestrian-only paths, hiking and mountain biking paths, you can check out the content from our friends at American Trails. They have an upcoming webinar in June on helping wheelchair hikers find hiking trails. And this webinar comes just days before our annual spring celebration of trails. We call it Celebrate Trails Day. The point of Celebrate Trails Day is to mobilize people to get out on their local trails, whether alone or with loved ones, self-organized or as part of an event organized by one of our many local partners. If you want to learn how to participate and find an event near you, you can learn more at the link in the chat. And in light of this, we just want to continue to uplift the topic of accessibility and inclusion as we prepare to celebrate trails both on April 22nd and beyond. And so with all that in mind, let's get into today's webinar. We have 3 presentations from 3 amazing panelists talking about the ways that they've been able to prioritize accessibility and inclusion of trail users with disabilities in their events and programming. We hope that this discussion will prompt thinking about how you can design inclusive experiences for trail users in your own context. First, we'll hear from Devon Kurtz. Devon is the Executive Director of the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. In this role, he acts as steward of BHC's environmental resources an interpretive partner with the National Park Service of the region's history, and a committed advocate for the region's economic development and progress. He'll be taking us through their adaptive biking program. And then next, we'll hear from Eric Mahnerd. Eric comes to us from Sequim, Washington, where he serves as a board member of the Sequim Wheelers. Eric will be talking about running this all-volunteer operation to provide free rides on the Olympic Discovery Trail to folks with mobility limitations and other disabilities. And then finally, we'll hear from Erin McDaniel. Erin is the Health and Fitness Program Manager for Special Olympics of Kansas. Erin will be talking about how Special Olympics uses trails in its events, build community and impart skills and confidence in their athletes with intellectual disabilities. And so with that, I will turn it over to our very first speaker, Devon Kurtz. Take it away, Devon.
Hi, thank you, Yvonne. Hello, everyone. My name's Devon Kurtz. I'm with the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And if we could go to my first slide. The Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor is made up of 25 cities and towns between Worcester, Massachusetts, and Providence, Rhode Island. And we were created through an act of Congress in 1986 to celebrate the region as the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution. Today, there are over 60 national heritage areas in the country, and we are private nonprofits that work in partnership with the National Park Service. And then if we could continue on. So, of course, we got our birth in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and Sam Slater, and the rise of industry. And of course, not only were the birthplace of the textile revolution, but if we can go to my next slide. We also, for about 10 years, were the center of bicycling for the United States. Granted, that was a very short period of time, but we had many famous people come through and from the area. That picture that we just saw was William Windle, who was a bicycle racer of the high-wheeled bikes or penny farthings. And you can keep going, I'm sorry. And we also had about, well, in the city of Worcester alone, 7 bicycle clubs in the 1880s and 90s. So picture 100 fellows dressed all in the same uniforms, riding their high-wheeled bicycles along the dirt roads and the cobblestone pathways. So they were an important part of our legacy. And you can see some young fellows continuing on in the early 1900s. Bicycle maps were published of the region, not just of the routes to take, but also of which taverns to stop in for good beverages. There were also about 30 bicycle shops within the city of Worcester and the region during this time period. So it was a huge sport and a huge way to get people out discovering the region. And of course, this is the time period when the century was invented. So picture doing a century on a high-wheeled bicycle along a dirt road, if you will, especially in hilly central Massachusetts. And I do want to pause for just a moment and talk about one of our most famous bicyclists, and this is Marshall Major Taylor. Although originally from Indiana, he emigrated to Worcester to ostensibly work in a bicycle factory, but really to race bicycles. And he ended up in Worcester because of that first fellow we met, William Windle, who convinced him to move here because there'd be less racism on the racetracks. Major Taylor earned the right as the fastest man in the world because on that bicycle you see, he could bicycle a mile in 1 minute and 19 seconds. So not a bad standing for Major Taylor. The Blackstone River Bikeway is within our heritage corridor, and eventually we hope that it will be 48 miles long, but currently we have a little over 24 plus miles of off-road bike paths constructed. We began in 1998. The bike paths themselves are at the very minimum 10 feet wide with a 2-foot shoulder, and that's in both Rhode Island and in Massachusetts. We don't connect the 2 states yet, however. In Massachusetts, we have about 4 miles at the north end and about 4 miles on the southern end. We hope to connect to Rhode Island from the southern point in the next 3 years. A contract was just awarded for the construction over several aqueducts. In Rhode Island, we have over 11 miles that have been completed from Woonsocket all the way down to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, as well as several separate paths through the city of Providence. We do rides throughout the region, both led by National Park Rangers and by corridor staff and volunteers. But this brings us to, if we can, we also have a very large Bikeway Ambassador program. We have over 35 ambassadors that ride our bike paths, lead tours, and give out information, as well as help with trail cleanup. A very important part of our accessibility program comes with that young woman in the back of the accessible bike in the green shirt. And Margaret had a dream of seeing a bikeway go through her town in Blackstone. And that happened just a few years ago, but at this point she was no longer able to ride a bicycle. So our volunteer director at the time reached out to an organization nearby, and we were able to do, on the opening of the bike path, an accessible ride just for her, so she could see her 30-odd years of hard work come to fruition. And out of that ride, we thought, hey, if we could do this for Margaret, we should be doing this for lots of other people. And thus our accessibility bikeway program was born. And we took our volunteers, and working with an amazing partner in Northampton, All Out Adventures, we trained our volunteers to work with people of varying abilities and bicycles. In fact, we trained with the Veterans Administration Hospital out there to train our volunteers to assist our participants getting on and off bikes, how to adjust bikes for different riders, and get them set up, because of course there's no such freedom as being on a couple of wheels on a paved path going through beautiful scenery. We now, working with All Out Adventures as well as several other partners, can do about 30 rides a day, and we offer anywhere from 2 to 10 days per year that are all grant funded. So we work both with local foundations as well as the Library of Medicine to offer these rides, as well as give out information for disability help. We can move forward a little bit more. Here you can, if you go back to the first one, you can see a bunch of our participants, even during COVID, where we thought we were going to have to slow down. Although we did miss our spring season, we jumped right back in with all new training for our staff and volunteers to deal with all of the COVID protocols. Oddly enough, it wasn't working with our partners, but with the National Park Service guidelines that prohibited us from putting our volunteers out that spring, just because we were unsure of where the epidemic was going at that time. But we are getting up and are ready for our new year coming up now. We can proceed forward. We also work with our national park our state park programs in both Rhode Island and Massachusetts. The Department of Conservation and Recreation in Massachusetts has a universal access program. So now when they do programs here in our region, they take advantage and utilize our trained volunteers to offer further programs. They, however, charge where we get ours grant funded. We also work with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management to offer the rides on the southern portion of the bikeway. One of the big stumbling blocks that we did have to deal with is liability insurance. So luckily we have a couple lawyers on our board, as well as some insurance adjusters, and we're able to smooth out liability insurance in both states. Things that when I entered the museum field, I didn't think I'd have to be dealing with. And now you can see that we are out and about. We have our rangers and our volunteers all working and having a great time, offering a new sort of freedom to people to be able to get on the bikeway. This then pushed us to say, you know, if we can get our bike paths open, what else can we do? The byline of our Volunteers in Parks program is imagine the possibilities. So we went from the bikeways, and we now also offer birding by ear programs for participants who may have hearing issues, and how can we get them off into the woodland paths and identify birds both by sight and also by sound. We also offer an accessibility kayaking program, and we also work with several inner city youth organizations to recycle bicycles to get more kids out on the bike paths. So we took this small initiative of bringing a longtime volunteer to achieve her bucket list to offering a full range of programs that happen all year round. So there's lots happening through the Blackstone
I'm
River Valley.
listening to Eric.
So thank you, and imagine the possibilities with everything you do.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much for that enlightening presentation. We're going to move right along to Eric Mahnerd from Sequim Wheelers. Eric, whenever you're ready, just unmute and let's go.
Good morning, Yvonne. First, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk about Sequim Wheelers and how we serve our community. Sequim Wheelers, Cycling Without Boundaries. It's an adaptive bike program. As you can see here, when we talk about our adaptive bikes, they're basically a wheelchair with an electrically assisted bike behind it. Next slide. What we do, the program was founded in 2018, and we provide free adaptive bikes to anybody that cannot ride a bike any longer. We go out 5 or 6 times a week. We usually take our 3 wheelchair bikes, 1 side-by-side tandem bike, and our newly acquired Trishaw bike. During these rides, we'll take 6 riders, which we refer to as the wheelers, and we have 8 trained volunteers. The person that is actually driving the adaptive bike, he or she is a pilot. And then with each bike that goes out, we will have safeties in front and in back to ensure that the ride area is safe, that traffic is stopped, that if there's any conflicts with horses, which we have on our trails, we're there to make sure that everybody's safe. That's our #1 priority. We find that the program is so rewarding. We go out on the Olympic Discovery Trail, and the people that we take out have such a wonderful time. Next slide, please. On these rides, we've taken people that have come from our retirement facilities and from our rehab facilities. And we also have intellectually challenged people that join us. And we get them out into the nature and get them out of their homes. A lot of them are all by themselves, and their only exposure to the outdoors is when they come with us. It's really a wonderful event. Next slide. The program started in 2017 when our leader and first president and founder of Sequim Wheelers, Nicole Lepping, she saw a PBS program about an adaptive bike program up in Illinois. And she thought it'd be a perfect fit for Sequim, where we have a lot of retired people. So she started putting together some volunteers. She ended up with 16 volunteers, and they went out and tried to get money to buy our first bike. And they said that it was really amazing as people would listen to the program, see the videos, hear the stories, they could relate to someone in their family or someone they knew that would really benefit from these rides. Next slide. Our board consists of 10 people, And last season, we had 35 volunteers, both as pilots and safeties. 2 weeks ago, we had an open house, and we were able to sign up 15 more volunteers to join our program. Next slide. This is the equipment that we have. We have one au-pair bike, 2 duet bikes, our brand new Trishaw, which I'll talk about a little bit in detail later, and then our fun to go or side-by-side bike. And this bike is really unique in that it gives the person, the wheeler, an opportunity to participate in the actual pedaling, not the steering, but the pedaling of the bike. And so we find the majority of the people that do ride on the side-by-side fun to go really love it. And there's the one lady, Ellen, that says, "Come on, Eric, we got to go faster. I got to keep my legs stronger." So it's a wonderful addition to our program. Next slide. Who do we serve? Mostly we are serving retirement facilities on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursdays, we work with Discovery Memory Care people. And then on Fridays, it's Sequim Health and Rehab. Saturdays, we have private rides. And then we also have a Clallam Mosaic rides at the River Center. And those are people that are intellectually challenged. And those are shorter rides. Most of the time our rides are 1 hour, but the group from Clallam is quite large. So we take them on shorter rides on the Olympic Discovery Trail. We also participate in many special events during the year. We kick it off with the Lavender Festival, August Sea to Sound. November, we do Cranksgiving. It's a food drive. We do concerts in the park all summer long. We also work with the MS group and many more. One I forgot to mention, and we also participate in the Irrigation Festival Parade each May, which is the longest lasting festival in the state of Washington. Next slide. 2018, 2019, our first 2 seasons and some numbers. In July 2018, it was a short season. As you can imagine, up here in the Pacific Northwest, we only operate in the summer because it's too cold and a little too wet for winter. We had 1 bike in 2018. We went on 61 rides. We had 180 volunteer riders with us, and we took 90 wheelers or riders on rides. We trained 15 more volunteers during that time. 2019, we got a second wheelchair bike, went out on 75 rides. We had 276 volunteers participating. And then that year we started going into special events. We took 92 wheelers out on rides. And in total, we had raised $50,000. Next slide. Then, as we know, 2020 COVID hit. And because a good share of the people that we serve are elderly, their safety was our #1 concern. So we did not operate at all for fear of spreading or contacting COVID. 2021, we started again, but it was sort of a shortened season. We added the side-by-side bike. We only went on 31 rides. We had 75 volunteers and 75 wheelers. And what happened during 2021, we would have the ride schedule. Then we'd hear from the facility and say one person had come down with COVID in that facility. So that, caused us to cancel the rides. Continue, please. 2022, we were up to 4 bikes. We had 86 rides, 280 volunteers, and we took out 174 wheelers. We also trained some more volunteers. Continue, please. Our typical season in March, we got our second wheelchair. Then we do our training. We're starting that actually this afternoon. And then we do presentations to various groups looking for their support. May, we have the Irrigation Festival Parade. Then we work with Chamber. And then we go over to Port Townsend, which is about 20 miles away, make presentations over there. Starting in June, we participate in the weekly farmers market, Saturday market. And then also during June and August, every Tuesday, we take our seniors on the bikes down to our park for outdoor concert. We do the tour of the Lavender and Sea to Sound, and then we have a food driving in November. Next, please. Here's some shots of the rides that we've done. As you can see, that's the Railroad Bridge Park behind us. I'll talk about more about that in a moment. Continue. And here's some more shots. And up in the upper right-hand corner, this is our, we like to call him our youngest rider, Vern. He's 103 years old, and he absolutely just loves it when we take him out on the rides. You know, it's one of the things we talk about with what a wonderful experience it is for them. I'll give you an example. Mary is 94 years old, and she's all by herself. She lives in one of the facilities in a one-bedroom apartment. I took her out on a ride, and she had grown up in Sequim. As we were around the city, she was pointing out landmarks, pointing out where she was born, and she just absolutely went crazy. And she came back several times. She said it was such a joy. And we find that so often with the people that we're able to take on the rides. It's just a wonderful experience, not only for them, but for all of our volunteers. Next slide. Here's the Irrigation Festival. It's a large parade. In fact, it's May 13 this year. So we participate in that to get more exposure and volunteers for our program. Continue. Here's the concerts in the park that we talked about, and we bundle the people up, take them down there. Next slide. Clown Mosaic. These kids and adults are just wonderful. They have so much fun on the bikes, shortened rides, but we get like 20 of them out in one day. It's really a wonderful event. Next, please. Tour the Lavender. This is a big event here in Sequim. You know, they have a Lavender Festival every year, and they have 800 riders come out and participate in this event. And we take part in that. We actively support it, and they support us. It's a 2-day event that's really nice. Next one. INC Ride Sea to Sound. At the beginning, Yvonne had a link to his website. Sadly, he was in a terrible accident and became totally paralyzed. You can see him in the middle picture there, and he controls that wheelchair with a little breathing tube. He was suffering from horrible depression afterwards, after his accident. Some people got him outside on his wheelchair, and it just turned his life around. Now he puts together a 75-mile, 2-day ride on the Olympic Discovery Trail that encourages people that have mobility problems to get out and enjoy the outdoors. And we help support that program every year. Next, please. This is our new Trishaw. We just got this a couple of months ago. And on this bike, we can have 2 people side by side. And what really makes it unique and really offers a new opportunity for our wheelers is that they can bring people with them from their family. And what we're finding is that we have, say, an elderly citizen on the bike, and they'll invite their grandchildren or great-grandchildren to come along and ride with them. So it's really nice addition to our fleet. Continue, please. The location. We go on the Olympic Discovery Trail. If you're not familiar with it, it goes from Port Townsend all the way out to La Push on the Pacific coast. It's 135 miles long. And each year they're completing more and more segments. It's multi-surface. Where we go, it's probably 10 to 12 feet wide, and it's all paved. And we started at the Dungeness River Center, and then our first journey takes us across the bridge and the Dungeness River. Next one. Who supports the wheelers? Well, luckily, we get a lot of support from our local community, and we've been reaching out to some national grants as well. We have 35 wonderful volunteers, and we're going to add 15 more this year, so that's exciting. We get a lot of support from our local newspapers. We are all donation-based. We write grants, and we get a lot of individual donations. Probably 75% of our donations are from individuals. So far, we've raised close to $65,000 to support our program. Next, please. Also coming up on July 11th, if you would save the date, at 6 a.m. in the morning, it's Give 65 online, and it's by Home Instead Charity and Home Instead Sequim. And it gives you an opportunity starting at 6 in the morning to make a donation, and then they will match it. It's a wonderful program. The first year we got $7,800. Last year we got $5,000. Okay, next. How can you help us? We're always looking for support for our organization, and it doesn't have to be on a bicycle. We always have a need for office and admin, planning special events, managing our website, bicycle maintenance. Of course, we love donations and people spreading the word, scheduling, and then of course, the backbone for us is fundraising. And I believe the last slide. You can find us here, 3 easy ways to help and 3 easy ways to find out about our program. You are on Facebook.com, Sequim Wheelers. Our website, real easy, sequimwheelers.com. And our email is sequimwheelers@yahoo.com. We'd love to have you come find out more about us. And if you'd like, we'd love to have a donation. Thank you very much for letting us participate.
Of course, we are so excited to have Sequim Wheelers represented in this webinar. So excited that they're the cover image for our webinar. We've had experience with RTC folks being able to get out on the trail and enjoying the experiences on the Trishaw. So that was awesome. Great. So now it's time for us to hear from our final speaker, Erin McDaniel, who comes to us from the Special Olympics of Kansas. So Erin, take it away when you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks again for inviting us on. We are not a bike program, but we do have a great program. So we are actually located in Mission, Kansas, but I do serve the whole state and all of our 2,000 athletes. And this is just one program that we have, Health and Fitness Lab. Is the next slide. So what is Treats and Trails? Treats and Trails was a program that was actually built out of COVID. We were trying to figure out ways to get our athletes still outside and get them active, even though we weren't allowed to run traditional programming. So we ended up getting a grant funded from the Sunflower Foundation here in Kansas. And Treats and Trails has become a day for athletes, families, and coaches to walk on an urban trail and earn prizes for games and stations that they come across along the way. So usually we work for about a mile trail, and then along that trail, they're going to meet all of these sponsors and our different, and they don't always have to be sponsors, but community members that they'll go by and participate in educational games. So our sponsors and partners are a huge part of these events because we want our community to get out in front of our athletes and introduce themselves and get comfortable with them. It's also important because they are learning education from other people than me and other people that they usually see in front of them. So getting the same information from different people is very important for our athletes and making sure that those future habits stick. SOKS also provides pedometers for athletes and families members to track their steps along the way. So that is something that was funded mainly by the grant. So those were a fun little extra that they got. Next slide, please. So why trails? Again, this was built post-COVID. So we were trying to brainstorm ways that we could get our athletes out and active in a safe and effective way. During COVID, they did wear masks, of course, but we made sure that they were spread out in different groups. And it was just a great way for them to still be able to get out in a safe way. So we also chose trails because physical activity, of course, is going to boost our athletes' self-esteem and their confidence and their self-advocacy for themselves and their own health. And it also improves their behavior. Being in nature can also boost your mood and improve mental health. It has vastly reduced our athletes' stress along with their caregivers, calms their anxiety, and also can lead to a lower risk of depression. Also, through all of our research, we found that participation in Group classes or events, whatever it may be, actually offers a great social outlet for our athletes as well, especially when they are not in season for their sport. Next slide. So I did talk about self-advocacy for our athletes. So confidence for them is extremely important for us. So with individuals that have intellectual or developmental disabilities, there's a huge gap that impacts both physical health and their quality of life. And this is mainly also in the area of outdoor recreation. So not only do they have disparities in many other areas, outdoor activity is a huge one. So we wanted to make sure to address that. Hiking is the most versatile and accessible. So that's why we decided that trail walking would probably be best for them. So all of this program is supported on a three-legged stool. So this is with our carefully curated trails, making sure that they are fully accessible, that they're not too long, that our athletes aren't going to get exhausted on the way through, that there aren't barriers that they have to pass through. Also through effective teaching practices. This is why we get the community out in front of our athletes to be able to truly disseminate the information in a variety of different ways. So whether or not they're playing games or just answering trivia questions, it makes learning fun. And also including programs to provide support. So this is that self-advocacy piece, really disseminating the information to our athletes in a way that it's digestible for them, and that they're going to go home and remember it and even come back to the trail that we introduced them to and continue those physical activity habits. Next slide. So I'm going to highlight our key components and explain a little bit more about what they do and why they are so important. So community partner involvement, I have already mentioned a couple of times why they are so important, but there are a variety of ways in which we use community partners and sponsors. So we do have our LETR force, and that is our force of police officers that fundraise money directly for the Special Olympics. So getting them out in front of our athletes, a lot of our athletes do unfortunately have backgrounds or are offenders, or maybe have maybe just had a bad experience with law enforcement. So a big reason why we get them out in front of them is to get them to interact with them in a fun way, realizing that they are a resource for them and it's not something that they should fear or be afraid of, and that they are, like I mentioned, a great resource for them to use if need be. We also get local and state parks and recreation out there to teach our athletes along the trail, maybe about the plants that are there, the animals that might be present, or any other things that they might see on the trail. And we also get our local and state health departments involved. One, this is a huge way for us to get in with them for inclusive health training for their staff in order to treat our athletes in the way that they deserve or should be treated. And so it also gets physicians and doctors in front of our athletes so they feel more comfortable with their doctors. A lot of our athletes are afraid of going to, maybe the dentist, maybe they've had a bad experience. And so this is a really opportunity to foster those relationships. Some other sponsors and supporters that we have out include the YMCA and then smaller organizations like the Running Well and other neighborly shops. Next. So treats actually allows for higher physical activity involvement among our athletes. Treats is all the goodies and the knowledge that they get along the way. So when athletes sign up, usually they're put into a pool for a raffle. So that's already a huge way in which is going to get them involved. A lot of times our athletes don't see the value in why they're doing physical activity or why maybe they should eat healthy food or shower every day or brush their teeth. So these are really fun ways to get them involved and engaged and excited. We don't always want to say we have to bribe our athletes, but we want to get them excited and we want them to feel like they've accomplished something afterwards. So yes, we are going to give them little prizes and stuff for completing that because they're advocating for their own health just for being out on the trail. Next. Lastly, our Treats and Trails has actually been a huge motivator for other involvement in health and fitness programming that we run post-COVID. Getting them out and active again has been extremely difficult. Participation is definitely down from 2019. So we've been constantly working on, how do we engage these caregivers and these athletes and these caregivers who may be afraid to put their athlete in an environment where they're around a bunch of other people. And so I think this is really a great leeway into getting their athletes back into regular programming. So this has helped with our Fit 5 programming, which if you guys want to learn more about that, you can always go to our website, and also increase participation in all of our national challenges. So this did increase our athletes participating in our Special Olympics North America Move Challenge. We saw that direct with grant numbers. So we had the research to back up. Next. All right, so just kind of weird treats and trails is gone. So it was born in 2020, and we did not do a good job of keeping numbers for that. So I'm going to start with year 2021. This was the first year of full funding from Sunflower Foundation. We were able to serve 50 direct athletes in 2021. We grew all the way to serving 231 athletes throughout the state in 2022. And this year we are already at 152 athletes served through treats and trails, and we are only in April. So we could for sure see that number at least double, if not triple in that time. So I think we are very proud of the success of this program, but not just because, you know, we have this successful program. We have the results and to show that it actually works and that athletes are excited to get back out there again once we run them. And these are not repeating athletes, so we do not double count numbers, but we do have teams that have ran more than one treats and trails or have won more than one. So if we double counted, we'd probably be looking at about double. Next. So some tips and best practices that we have learned from running this program. We, of course, want to use existing resources to identify accessible trails. Yvonne mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that they have an amazing app to utilize as well. But there are many, many resources to use to make sure that the trails are fully accessible, depending on what the population is that you have there. So whether or not there's mobile wheelchairs or electric wheelchairs or even more intense equipment than that. So just making sure that it is easily travelable, that there's not going to be a lot of barriers. We also want to emphasize that we like to use urban trails. So that way we can kind of introduce them to the shops and things that they might walk by on a daily basis when they walk this trail, and that they can use it to get places like the grocery store. A lot of our athletes don't drive themselves, so we really want them to feel comfortable on these urban trails so that way they can use them in their daily life. This is a community and collaborative event overall. So if the community was not involved, the event would not be what it is. The whole goal is to try and bring all of these community resources to our athletes in one place, so that way we can foster those relationships as an organization, but that way also as individuals within these different partners or sponsors, that they are able to create those individual relationships as well. So in a recent conducted needs assessment from this past year, we really realized athletes wanted to know the why behind being told to, like I said, eat healthy or get out and walk trails or be active. And this gives them the why. So events like this really pave the way for them understanding why they should do it for themselves. I think it's easy for a caregiver or for somebody like me to stand in front of our athletes and say, you need to do this. They're not going to do it. So we have to get them out there, and we have to get in the field and teach them in a fun, engaging way that they are going to be invested in their own health. They want to know what's in it for me. So what are you going to get out of this? Not always are you going to get, you know, a lapel pin or a water bottle or a t-shirt for doing this. So what are the other things that you're going to get besides that? Fun to get those things, and maybe that's how we have to start off in motivating them. But they also have the chance to learn a little bit deeper about their health. Lastly, there are still barriers that exist, and I think unfortunately there probably always will be, but I think, you know, we can do a better job of addressing them moving forward. We have a lot of our athletes that are in group homes, so this brings up the issue of how do we get them to these trails events? There's not always a chance for them to walk to these events. So we have actually run events at group homes before, where they've had a neighborhood track or something like that, that we could go to a local school and you can walk there. But for community run events, that's always going to be an issue. Are we going to pay for transportation to bring a bus there to bus them all out? Things like that. Also, people are uninformed. Our athletes don't always have the internet. They don't always know how to use the internet. And they don't always have a caregiver or somebody directly there by them to help assist them with looking up when our events are or what time they should be there. So a lot of times people are just uninformed. An event happens, they'll reach out and they'll say, why didn't I know about this? Or I really wanted to go. When are you having another one? So those are always going to be issues that we have as well. So is it a matter of mailing out flyers, direct mailing? Is it a matter of really having our regional directors maybe meet with teams and have an announcement at the end of practices? So things like that we always need to be aware of. Next. So why does all of this matter? We are really starting to bridge the large disparity gap regarding outdoor physical activity and individuals that have IDD. We also are bringing a mix in between education and self-advocacy. So really helping the athletes realize that we're not just teaching you to teach this, we're teaching this for you. And this is why you should care about your health and take action, not tomorrow, but today. Also, community engagement and relationship building, that's always going to be important. Like I said, not just as an organization in regards to funding and potential larger sponsorships and partnerships, but to get them in front of our athletes and build direct relationships with them, not just us. And then this allows us to utilize what already exists. So like I said, we like using these urban trails to get our athletes in front of their community and realizing maybe I could use this trail to walk to the YMCA. We had an athlete who was walking from his assisted living apartment to the YMCA every single day, and he had no clue that the sidewalk on the side of the road was actually a specially curated trail. It might not be your traditional, walk through the woods trail, but it was a specially curated trail for community members to be able to travel amongst their community as they please. So overall, I thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I thank you guys for allowing me to bring what we do with our athletes to the forefront. I know we're not the only state program that does stuff like this, but I'm glad that we were able to give the chance to give this Streets and Trails a spotlight because it is unique to Kansas. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you for the perspective of how trails can be more inclusive for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So there are lots of good questions for our panelists, and I don't want to waste any time because we have, 9 minutes? I just want to get into those questions. A quick reminder, if you're interested in accessibility guidelines for the design of trails, please check out the links in the chat to our toolbox page. From there are lots more links to other sources, including the US Access Board. Okay, so one of the questions that's shown up a couple times is how you acquire bikes. So for Devon and Eric, where can you purchase your adaptive bikes and how much do they cost? What are the price ranges for the adaptive equipment that you use?
Our bikes are all made in the Netherlands and they're quite expensive. They run $12,000 to $15,000 each. And one of them was a used bike that we got for about half that price. And all of our bikes are acquired through donations.
And it's the same with us. We actually work through partners that already own the bicycles, whether it's DCR here in Massachusetts or with All Out Adventures from Northampton. But we were able to take a grant that was for programs during COVID, and we were able to acquire an electric assist trike through a company in Rhode Island called Ride On, and they import everything from the Netherlands as well. And I think that was for us at about 11,500, but that's at the lower end.
Great. So keeping on the issue of the bikes, there was a question about bike maintenance. How often do you service the bikes? it feels like bike maintenance sometimes is an issue that kind of is a barrier for some of these organizations because of the equipment is specialized. So how do you manage your maintenance?
We have 2 volunteers that maintain the bikes for us. And as you can imagine, as much as we do use them, it does require amount of maintenance and both routine, and then we'll do major maintenance during the off season. But one of the things, even those bikes are expensive, they are high quality bicycles. And so we've been very, knock on wood, lucky that we haven't had any major problems with.
And we've been training our Bikeway ambassadors with routine maintenance so that they can help out on the trail, as well as we have friends with several of the local area bike shops. And so they assist us during the wintertime with any overall end of season maintenance.
Great. For all of the panelists, I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit about how you've each found funding to support your inclusive events.
Ours is done mainly 75% from individuals. And then our second biggest one is writing grants, both locally, and now we're trying to go more national. And then third, we have fundraising events. Just recently, we had the open house and we raised, I think, close to $1,000 during that event, just by people that came by and learned about our program, many of which didn't volunteer, but said, wow, this is a great program, so we'll donate money. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, we operate almost 100% off of grants. So we've got a grant writer on staff who is amazing at just constantly writing grants, because I'd say you probably put out 50 applications and you're probably going to get one back. So I think there are a lot of great websites where you can actually put in what you're looking for grant wise, and it will pop up a bunch of different grants that are based off of your parameters, and they'll generate for you, and then you just click on them and apply to each of them down the line. So
and we do the same. It's a lot of grant writing. We find that one day of programs, which is about 30 rides, is around $12,000 for staffing and bike use, as well as, you know, even the amenities, water, porta johns if you need them. So we're constantly hunting for grants to support our program. But we're also now veering out into sponsorships, because more and more local businesses are interested in supporting it, especially where about half of our programs are for disabled veterans.
Well, we've also got a couple questions about insurance and liability. So people are curious to know what types of insurance or liability protections you have. And when you do the, you know, like bike rides, for example, do you have people that are medically trained riding along?
Our insurance is liability insurance, and each year, obviously, it goes up. It's expensive. Anybody that rides with us has to sign a waiver before we can take them on a ride legally. We do not have trained medical staff with us, but we do treat our wheelers with utmost respect, and any kind of you know, if they're upset with the ride or don't feel comfortable with the ride or have any medical issues, we stop the ride immediately and return them back and notify the facility. If by chance we had a major event, we would certainly just immediately call 911. So far, we have not had to do that and have had great success with our rides.
And we have general liability insurance that goes from program to program. Most of our volunteers and staff are trained for basic first aid, but that doesn't mean that we want to administer it. We don't have a paid medical professional on hand as a general rule. And for a real severe case, we tend to require a caregiver to be along to provide any extra assistance.
Erin, did you have a comment on this?
We just do consents. So as long as the Parks and Rec department knows that we're going to be there and everybody has a consent signed when they come, that's going to be medical wise. Everybody has a release on file already. But yeah, just in case somebody needed to know that they're there, it's just consent.
And one other thing I think I failed to mention is that our organization is 100% volunteered staff. We have no paid positions in Sequim Wheelers.
Well, Erin,
We have
there's a
3
question
paid
for you.
staff, but we do a lot of other things besides just our bike rides.
Mhm. Erin, we have a question for you about what considerations you all make for trail conditions when working with Special Olympics athletes, and what examples of activities you have for the trails and tree walks.
For sure,
How do you
yeah.
come up with those activities? How do you brainstorm?
For sure. Yeah, so as far as trails go, we would just usually make sure that it's fully paved the whole way. And we want to make sure that they at least have enough room to maneuver with an electric wheelchair with probably about a foot on each side. So we're looking for a pretty wide trail too. If it's a circuit trail, we want to make sure that it's only about a mile. We don't want to overexhaust our athletes. And we also do want to usually give it a shorter option as well. So if it's like a mile circuit, for example, usually there's trails that you can find that have a smaller loop around, and we'll give the option of that. And then, like I said, we're usually looking at urban trails too. So we want to just make sure that the trail is either by stuff that they could go to or that they would need to go to at some point, or maybe past like a police department or something, so they know where their police department is and stuff like that. And then as far as planning goes, we really like that to be up to the sponsor or community member that comes out. But I think what we like to keep in mind is I do like to challenge our athletes. I think a lot of people don't give them the opportunity to do things that they might want to do or maybe fully able to do. So we do like to bring pretty heavy weights with us and teach them the right way to weight lift and making sure that posture is correct and things like that. But then we also want to get tools and resources in front of them that they could use on a daily basis. So resistance bands, smaller dumbbells, body weight exercises, stuff like that.
Great. Well, it looks like we're already at time, but there are lots more questions. We got to the ones that we could get to, but we will also be following up with those who've submitted their questions in the Q&A. So thank you so much, everybody who's participated in this webinar, especially our 3 presenters, Devon, Eric, and Erin. We know that we're still really scratching the surface of this topic. If you, as a participant out there in the world, are running or have participated in or know about inclusive events like these, we'd love to hear more of them. We'd love to spread the good word so that accessibility is more top of mind as people are thinking about both designing their trails and programming their trails. So just a big thank you, and you can find the contact information for all of our speakers and myself on this slide. We will have a survey right after this webinar, so please respond in that survey, and you can also submit additional thoughts. All right, so thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.